Ah, ah, ah. Weird Al, Waffle King. Actually really, really good like acoustics for testing tubes. I'm not joking, alright? I don't have a reason to lie to you. Weird Al, Waffle King. This is the Cavalli tube hybrid. Now, it looks exactly like a THX 789 because it's in the exact same case. Another review coming up is the LCX S-DAC, which looks exactly like the 789 because they're in the exact same case, but it looks like this and this looks like that. This is a tube sticking up. So mass drop probably a giant amount of metal cases, and they're going with it. And I actually like the design. Like I really do like the square edges that aren't quite sharp, although that right there could probably take off a couple layers of skin. I'm not gonna unplug it or turn it off because tube, keep it warm. You get a transformer, input DC 28 volt, 1.25 amp, which is actually quite a lot of power, and one set of RCA inputs. The end. The front, I don't think simpler is a possibility. White power LED, just like the 789. Power button, which is a little bit loose, it just sort of floats here, but it's just on-off analog. I put the indicator on the volume knob because there's fucking nothing that's good. I don't remember if there is one under here. I've had this on for so long. But the point is, there's a much nicer indicator made out of the labels from my Dymo label printer. I will link my Dymo label printer in the description because everybody needs to label their power supplies and power bricks. This one doesn't have it. You get 4-pole balanced output and a 1/4-inch single-ended. That's it. There's no other. The tour is complete. Now this is a hybrid tube, which means it's not quite what my dark voice is. And the moral of the story, if you don't want to watch these videos for very long, I was taking my headphones, and I have the 2 headphones here that respond to tubes the greatest. I tested some other headphones, but like always, HD 600s and Neumann NDH20s. These are the actually they're both Sennheisers. Well, this is a Neumann, but it's a Sennheiser. These are the ones that you say, hey, what's this tube amp doing? You ask this, and now you ask this, and you go about your business. So, real quick, if the 789 is the solid state benchmark, which it fucking is, and the dark voice with modified tubes is the full tube experience, which it basically is at this point, this is directly in the middle of it. Fucking-rectly in the middle. Like, it's just, I was going 789, CTH, dark voice, CTH, 789. Up, down, left, right, in, out. Kinky, huh? And I'm able to, since I have the Ursine cables here, Ursine's, by the way, not dead. He had a couple issues, and he had the site shut down because people complained, and now he's just trying to sort his stuff out. But I have the Ursine cable set here that is balanced. I can put the balance connector on it, so I can go straight 789. That's I put it on this side. That's the side. And go straight to this. And I definitely hear, and they're coming off the same DAC, I definitely hear that there's just a more... usually hybrid tube amps have enough power. So let's see what the power output in this is. This claims THD of 0.008, which is pretty fucking good for a tube. Where the hell did I just see the power output? It's like one RMS watt at 50 ohms. That's, for a tube hybrid, that's pretty fucking good. So this will push 600s at like 10 o'clock. Not at night, but like the angle of the volume control. And it still brings out the tubiness. But, if I want to test this with an adapter straight into the dark voice, well, that's a tube amp. So I'm not knocking this because I think the dark voice will push almost the same amount of power. A watt through that is a lot. I have modified tubes and they've been warmed up for a while now, and it's like, and I can push the tube amp to distortion, the dark voice at least, and I haven't been able to push this to distortion because it's a solid state that's running a preamp. You're not actually adjusting what this tube does. It actually isn't even getting that warm. I could like, it's basically room temperature around this, and just like a little bit of warmth coming out of this. So yeah, it's not a tube. It's not going to replace a fully maxed out, highest cert level dark voice or Tor Roger or Bottlehead Crack or anything like that. But if you have a 789 or any amplifier, any solid state amp, and any good decent DAC, and you want to know, well, I should probably shut that off. And you want to know, I've been wearing headphones so I can't hear anymore. You want to know what tube do at $250. This is not the biggest expenditure you'll ever make in your life. And it is clean. Here's the thing. Sometimes, like, stock dark voice tubes, it sounds a little crunchy. Like everything's stock tube. The unit itself, the metal, the construction, the way the volume knob, great. But the stock tubes, they just use random Chinese tubes. You start swapping out tubes for the dark voice, and you start honing in with tubes got to burn it, and you get that warmth or that depth or that fucking, all that texture that you really want out of a tube. And then you got a tube amp. You got a real solid one. And then you can keep it relatively clean. This, as a hybrid, is exceptionally clean with just the flavors of tubes. So I didn't have to swap any tubes. I'm not swapping that tube. I actually have some tubes for the X Duo, and I don't know if they'd fit in that. I have to do some research. But you could touch this tube and make it do things. But I think what you're doing with this unit here, which let me put it back up. Madoka Magica. Like, I could tell, because these are probably the most neutral headphones. I love them. I love them. People are like, oh, they got like extended bass, COs. Yeah, because the music's got extended bass. They're neutral without being boring. That's the best part. That's the best part. If I pop this in here, and then I pop it in here, knowing that these headphones take to a tube like just like a sponge. Like a sponge in day-old milk. Ew. But, I would think this is a more tolerable tube experience for most people. If you're not willing to go through the anarchy and hell of searching out Chinese tubes and Russian tubes and old vintage American tubes and swapping them in and out, this gives you clean power, because power amp is that's the hybrid part. This gives you clean, accurate power and just the flavor of a tube. Just a flavor. And if you have a 789, you buy one of these, you stick it on top of it because it'll stack beautifully. You run the RCA outs into this from whatever DAC you're feeding that. I don't remember if that feeds outwards. If you run a balanced DAC into it, I don't know if the outputs push single-ended RCA. I'm going to make this fucking move until someone in the comments answers, because I have to rip apart my whole desk to figure that out. But you just bounce in and out into this, and you'll have a different, you'll definitely have, I can guarantee you, because I'm doing it, a different sound between the cleanliness of the fully solid-state 789 and the Cavalli tube hybrid. I would swap tubes because I'm a crazy person. But if you don't want to swap tubes, you don't have to. You're going to get 1 watt of power out of this, which is like basically like the benchmark. It's the same as the JDS Labs Atom. It's the same as the Liquid Spark. You're just getting that little bit of tube fuckery. Tube fuckery. Just feel it, touching it. And honestly, you can almost forget that there's a tube. It's clean enough. Like, I'm not losing detail. On some tubes, on the stock tubes and dark voice, you literally lose things. And you have to touch a lot of tubes and touch them and put them in place to get a tube that doesn't lose anything and just gains more reverb or bass extension. Or it does things with the delay, the phase delay, with the way the sound's produced. That makes it sound wider, which is why my 600 sounds amazing on a tube. Also why these sound amazing on a tube. And I'm sitting here and I'm just going, Is it worth it for you if you already have like a dark voice or a high-end tube and a high-end solid state? I count these two as both those things. I'm a realist. That's a high-end tube. That's a high-end solid state. You swap those out. Tube's great. This is literally forged by elves in the mountain city of Mordor, or where the fuck it was. Do you need this? Because it sits right in the middle. And I don't think you need it if you have those. But the off chance you have just a tube and you want to try something solid state, but you're afraid of complete solid state, this works. And if you have a decent solid state and you just want to try some tubes, but you have really hard to drive headphones or planar, here's the thing. You are not supposed to run planar headphones on a real tube, on a tube like that, because the resistance pattern is different. It just does not jive with a tube. The way tubes produce power and they accept the resistance of like a speaker driver is different when you get to a planar. And you're not supposed to run planar on a tube, and I've done it. And sometimes it sounds weird, just weird, straight up weird. So this is a solution, because this is a solid state amp with a tube that comes before it all. There you go. If you have planars and you want to try tubing planars, you could do this. Or, alternatively, the dark voice, at least this specifically dark voice, has a pre-out. So you can actually run your DAC into that, run RCAs out of that into a solid state amp, and then have a tube pre and have the dark voice access that. There's a couple amps that do that. So that would also allow you to run planar off a solid state amp and get a little bit of tubiness coming through the preamp. Not the same thing, because a real tube, when you really run a tube, what happens is the driver, the resistance of this, like this 300 ohm driver, this 150 ohm driver, gets plugged into a tube amp and draws, it puts a load on it, and the load that puts in the tube causes the tube to function differently. That's what makes the tube sound different. Solid state can compensate pretty fucking easily. Solid state either distorts or is clean. Tubes get sucked on. It's like trying to ride uphill on a bike. You know, if you're in a diesel truck, it just downshifts and a solid state drives up the hill. But 6 dudes on a bike are driving up a hill, all of a sudden that hill gets real steep. You're just like, oh, they're stressing and they're sweating, and that's what makes it sound different. So hybrids, just like this, can do something, but never truly be a tube amp. So that's all you got to know. Do I like this unit? Yes. Is it pretty? Yes. Is it simple? Yes. Is it affordable? Hell yes. $250? $250? How many sold on Massdrop? 1 trillion billion, I'm sure. 2,100 sold. Let's make that 3,100. It's worth it. They should, what Massdrop should do, pay attention, Massdrop, you sell all these tube hybrids, you sell these things, you should gather up like a 5-pack of tubes, put those in a drop, like see if you can find like some vintage stuff. You'd probably have a limited number, but get a couple old vintage US tubes, a couple Russian ones, throw them in a pack and say, Cavalli hybrid tube, you know, starter pack or swap pack. Or you can get 4 of them even, because this way this will be the 5th. And people could buy that for probably 60, 70 bucks and just start swapping tubes. Well, more like 80, 100 bucks if you get good tubes. And that'll be fun, because that's what this could be. This could be baby's first tube amp. But so is the little Dot Mark III, and so is that. The dark voice. That's basically, I wouldn't say it's baby's first tube amp. I'd put that against anything as far as tube sound goes, because you could just fuck with it all day. Take that tube out. Someone in my forums got a tube that looks like a light bulb. Thing's a perfect sphere. It's like, damn, this sounds amazing, and I'm tempted to buy it for 50 bucks. But then I'm gonna be one of those people who not only has a wall of headphones and a wall of speakers, but a wall of tubes, and I'm like, stop. Time to stop. Anyway, Cavalli hybrid tube. Link to this on Massdrop. It's for sale right now, but I think this is one of those rolling sales on Massdrop, so you should be able to get it, but if you see it's counting down, buy it. I mean, it runs so cool, you could probably even run it standing up if you want to be a badass, like I run those. I don't think this is going to affect it negatively. You can run tubes on their side, by the way. There's a secret nobody wants you to know. You could run tubes on their side. I had a friend who was going to build me a tube amp, and I'm like, can you build it in a case? So like the hole sticking out the top is great. What if I want to rack mount it? Can I have the tubes mounted sideways in there with like little windows? This is absolutely no problem doing that. Tubes don't care. Tubes don't care about the heat going up to the tip, or just So you could just run this thing like that. I do dislike the fact that the, here, I'll take off my, yeah, there's your dot. There's your volume dot, which means you can't see it when it's like that. I don't know where my volume is, and I'm doing swapping. Bad. Bad. Little piece of yellow tape. Good. And it doesn't fold around anymore because it's been on there for weeks. Okay. That's powered off. Done. By the way, links in the description for the 2 greatest headphones that have ever been on a tube amp. The Neumann NDH20, which are pretty much linked in like every video now. They deserve it. And the HD 600s, which are the epitome of classic headphone. Classic audiophilia. People are like, oh, I got the HD 800s. No, 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 no. HD 600s. And the Cavalli tube hybrid. Anyway, that's that. I'll see you all tomorrow. Check out the Patreon. A patron loaned these to me. If I would have bought these on Mass Drop, they'd be in the yard sale. They'd be first of the 10th. You guys could bid on them and then name your price. And then I pay shipping US or have shipping international. You get to ask me any questions you want there. You get to see these reviews early. There's a $10 Patreon chat, which gets you into a private chat with only $10 and higher patrons. And I would say those people are serious because they are. So if you're tired of the bullshit chat and the fucking public thing, that's where you go. Also, check out the forums. There'll be a forum post for this on Hi-Fi Guides. I'll be linked in the description, so if you want to discuss this at length, instead of being in the YouTube comments, you can go there and do it. It's free to sign up, you know, Google login, Twitter login, Facebook login, etc. Yeah, I think I'm good. We'll see her in the description. You can download her, and you'll see this, and you'll see me tomorrow. And that's all for today. A peace.